This is going to be a bit of a rant. As many of you know, I often appear as a guest on a television show called Paranormal State. The Paranormal Research Society, who are the focus of Paranormal State, often investigate extreme hauntings. Several of these hauntings are what they have deemed possessions or demonic in origin. The problem with associating myself with people who chase demons, of course, comes in the fact that a good portion of my core audience are people who are pagans, occultists. I know that there are LaVeyan Satanists out there, and a number of other people who certainly consider themselves to be adherents of dark paths of spirituality. So the idea of demons running around and people who are possessed having Catholic priests come and driving the spirits out is just about as abhorrent to that aspect of my audience as the very thought of demons and evil dark paths are to the other half of my audience. Somebody had asked a question on Twitter about a relative of theirs who there was rumors that they were involved in devil worship or something similarly evil. When I asked about it, then they were like, well, they said it was witchcraft, and the whole end of that call and response, with a couple of people jumping in when I suggested that not everything that seems dark is dark and it may be harmless. Somebody had jumped in and went like, well, if you think that dark is always harmful, then you do not understand the meaning of dark in the occult. And I really sort of had to laugh for about 3 hours about that. The idea that I don't understand dark or the occult. Because generally most of the white lighters are kind of looking askance at me because of many of my darker associations. This brought me to a point where, and this will probably turn into an article as well, evil is in the eye of the beholder in a lot of respects when you're talking about people who practice things that are dark or evil. The very use of the word dark for a certain aspect of society, dark is synonymous with evil. Dark is delving into forbidden topics. Dark is playing with dangerous and potentially harmful magics. For a whole other aspect of society, dark is about mystery. It is about forbidden knowledge and forbidden information, but it's about knowledge that hasn't been forbidden for any reason beyond the fact that people are frightened by it. So when we talk about dark magic or dark entities, I think it is often important to keep in mind that not everybody means the same thing when they're talking about these. When I classify a spirit as a demon, and there are a few occasions where I willingly will do so, I use the word demon not necessarily in the Judeo-Christian sense, that there is a heaven and a hell and a necessary sense of damnation and redemption, and a whole bunch of bad things have been shoved away for a permanent time out in a fiery pit somewhere off on the edges of reality. But I define a demon as a non-human entity that has a clearly malevolent agenda specifically aimed at living people. That this thing targets people, that there is a particular feel to its energy, that it is smart, it shows that it is self-aware and that it is aware of the people it is victimizing, and that it is doing this with great glee and intent. I think that Christian, pagan, or otherwise, people can agree that a non-human spirit that is, with malicious intent, victimizing people would fit the standard definition of demon. Now, a lot of you know that I've been working on a book, a dictionary of demons, in fact. It is predominantly a collection of proper names given to demons in the grimoire tradition, and this is a tradition of magic that was predominantly established between the 12th and 17th centuries in Christian Europe, medieval and Renaissance Christian Europe, although it has its roots back in Judeo-Christian biblical, both the Bible itself and in extra biblical material. You'll find references to stuff in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Essenes. I resource parts of the Jewish Haggadah, some other Talmudic stuff. These things that in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance in Europe were called demons, even then they didn't agree on what was a demon and what wasn't a demon, and was a demon good and was a demon bad. And largely the disagreements at that time had a lot to do with language as well, because the Greek word daemon, daemones, that our word demon comes from, daemones were not universally evil. Everybody was thought to have a eudaimonis, a good demon, and there were bad demons, kakodemons. And even, Socrates had been guided by his personal demon, by his own report, his entire life. He felt that the sentence handed down to him in Athens to quaff the fatal nectar of hemlock, to drink that poison as he had been condemned to death for corrupting the youth of Athens, he's quoted as saying that it couldn't be bad, that death couldn't be a terrible thing because his demon, his personal demon, had always turned him away from the improper path. And that morning when he got up to go down and face his sentence, his demon said nothing. It did not try to guide his steps away. And that's not to say that, oh my God, Socrates was a devil worshiper. No, it was the concept of demon in pre-Christian times is more complicated than just a good spirit or a bad spirit. A demon was a non-human spirit. It was somewhere between mankind and the gods. It might perhaps be better understood as a type of angel, but if we want to get into demons and angels, you go back into the Jewish tradition, and there's an amazing story about the death of Moses, and how Samael was the evil angel that God tasked with collecting the soul of Moses. And Samael was just overcome with glee. In the story, he's like rubbing his hands together going, I get to kill Moses. This is the most awesome thing ever. And while he's described as an evil angel, and we remember Samael as a demon, he still is a subject of God. So in those stories, even there, the idea of fallen beings or demons that had been cast out it's more complicated than we can possibly understand. Just the mythology that we have inherited, the belief system we have inherited is so complicated. So to say that dark is necessarily evil, even that something that we will call demonic, we need to understand that the word is more complicated. The connotations and the denotations of that word are very complicated, and that they are strongly influenced by the religious tradition from which the speaker hails. So if we are talking about a Christian tradition, yes, demons are universally evil. By the time you get to the New Testament, the book of Revelation, the idea of the sons and daughters of Belial, and the people who are set against God and Jesus, there is a definite sense, a very strict sense of black and white, and a war between these good and evil factions. But prior to that, in the Jewish tradition, it's a little fuzzier. And in non-Christian traditions, it's certainly fuzzy. And when you go back to the pagan Greeks and Romans, whose belief systems nevertheless have had an indelible stamp upon Europe of the Middle Ages and Renaissance, the Renaissance especially, thanks to the Medici and other Renaissance thinkers translating the classic works and bringing the teachings of Aristotle and Socrates and other great men to reclaim that knowledge that was lost during the Dark Ages. It's not as simple as black and white. I will use the word demon very strictly for a non-human spirit that is malevolent and willfully attacking humanity. Do I think that that necessarily means that there's a heaven or a hell, a damnation, a redemption, or some old guy with a big white beard in a bathrobe sitting on a cloud somewhere? Well, that part I don't want to get into. What I can say is I have experienced certain spirits that are definitely not nice. There's a particular feel to them, and they are not anything that you really want to run up against. What that means in the greater scheme of things, I can't say. But it doesn't also mean that anything that's dark is evil, because there are many different paths